And so I remember when I was able to really feel like God was saying to me, forgive them, forgive them. And I say, I don't have in this body, not even a single bone in my body would actually be able to do that. But it gave me the strength, give me the courage to be able to forgive this, to forgive the rape that happened to me, again, because rape was used as a weapon in the genocide. So there were up to like 500,000 women who were raped and girls in the genocide. Forgive these people for killing my family. And when I was able to say that, Betty, it was when I felt like my spirit was really lifted with so much freedom, with so much joy that I couldn't explain. And then God said to me, pray for them. And I was like, God, you must be funny, really.
I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a king. I don't need a thing. I've got a puppy and I've got a car and I've got friends and love in my heart and I've got the Constitution. Hell yeah! I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a king. I don't need a thing.
Welcome, Freedom Junkies, to Freedom Junkie Radio, again, the podcast that brings you freedom in any way we can find it, more freedom. Today is a very, very special edition of Freedom Junkie Radio because my guest today is one of those people that you come across rarely in life, who is an extraordinary person with who's lived an extraordinary life. I am welcoming Jeanne Celestine Lakin to the show. Jeanne, I'm going to introduce you and tell more about you, but thank you so much. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much, Betty, for having me. You know, when I read the title of this podcast, I was like, wow, I used to be so freedom junkie. And I used to be a political junkie. I used to be like so immersed into politics and wanting to learn more and wanting to soak in so much more. Then it kind of got negative, and I was like, I usually like the way to protect myself when I feel like that angst coming from me, to me. I was like, okay, I need to pull myself back a little bit. But I just love that you created this space for people to come in and express themselves, to have this like platform where people can actually talk. I love that the fact that you have this place that people like myself can be on here and be able to share my story. So hopefully I'll have to have some, sense to something additional to this conversation. So again, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am beside myself. So you guys know I'm going to just give a little introduction to Jeanne. I read her book, and I'm going to be referring to this throughout this interview, her book, A Voice in the Darkness. Jeanne was 9 years old when the Rwandan genocide began. She turned 10 during it. And so there you go. Jeanne is a Rwandan genocide survivor. That was in 1994. And it was just so recent. And not only did she survive, but all kinds of horrific experiences. But now she has come through the other end and is an advocate for orphans all over the world. So we're going to get to all of this. And I just want everyone to go get a copy of the book, or you'll order it. We'll teach you how to order it off of her. It is an unbelievable book. Jeanne, I was honestly a little scared to read it because you just think, okay, here we go. This is going to be a really heavy one and it's going to bum me out. But I have to say, I read it in 3 days, in 3 sittings. I couldn't put it down. And your story is so compelling and it's beautifully written. And it never bummed me out. You give extreme detail as to what was happening. And I know that had to be therapeutic for you, and we can talk about all of that. But I don't want anyone to be afraid of this book. It doesn't bum you out. It shifts you. And it makes you grow up a little bit because you recognize how people can be so cruel and be made to be so cruel, and how did this happen, and how, and could it happen again, and all of this. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, you were 9, you had to survive in the woods mainly, with your 2 little sisters. So you are one of, is it 11 children?
Yes, so my parents actually altogether, there were like 13 of us, but both mom and dad from a family of 10. And I kind of fall into like this, the second group. So I have a twin sister as well. But thank you for reading the book, and thank you for letting the audience know that it's not as, it's a painful experience. But when I was telling it from the beginning, I actually didn't think that it would come into a book story. When after the genocide, so I mean, the genocide was 3 months of a genocide, but it was one of the fastest killing campaign in our modern history. It was just over 100 days, 1 million people are slaughtered. They're killed because of their ethnicity, because of the way they looked. And so we go from that, and I get to survive the chaos. Like you mentioned, I was in the bushes, hiding in the swamps with my 3-year-old twin sisters. And I go back now, I have a 5-year-old, I look and go, wow, terrible threes, because they were not understanding. And there was no way to explain that we are hiding because of how God created us. We are being killed because of our ethnicity. And so they would just cry, I want to go see mommy, I want to go see daddy. And they go, you kidnapped us basically to be here in these bushes, in these swamps. They didn't understand the genocide. And I started trying to even explain to them. But after the genocide, I felt so much like anger, resentment, bitterness. It was just, my heart felt like I was in this dark place of just anger, almost nonstop, because of what I've seen. At one point in the genocide, I watched my father being killed with machetes and clubs, witnessed my mother's dead body as well, and my 3-year-old twins, my 3-week-old little brother. And so with all of that, I was like, I need to be able to tell my siblings what I just witnessed, how I survived the genocide, hoping that they would tell me in return what they've survived, how they survived. And so when I began having a conversation with them, it was when I noticed my older brother, Aimable, got up and left. My twin sister, Jeanette, she got up and she left. And that I realized that they didn't want to share that deepest pain of their lives. It's sad that, a lot of times when you love somebody so much, you rather keep it to yourself. So that way you don't feel like they're carrying your pain. And so I feel like that's for them, they didn't want me to know how bad it was for them. And there was wanting to, like, if I tell you what happened to me, you can tell me what happened to you. And it wasn't, even up to this day, they haven't got to a place to be able to share with me what the experience has been for them. But after the genocide, I started writing in my native language of what I've seen, because I really wanted to have that history for my younger siblings of what happened, what I experienced, and also to kind of let them know what mom and dad were like, as loving, kind people to humanity, to everyone in our community. And so I started writing in my native language, and then I met my husband, Paul. And when I came to US, I started writing both in my native language, with a little bit of French in there, and also English as well. So there's these notebooks, stacks of notebooks of how that experience was for me. And I met my husband and I said, yeah, that's just stories of how I survived the genocide. And he was like, nah, you know what? This is not just for your siblings. It's for the world to know what took place in 1994, the genocide against Tutsi people. So I went back and we started translating this from these notebooks, putting everything in English. And that's how the book really came to be what it is. And I love the fact that my husband was part of it, because the way I wrote it, it was very much, I was like venting of what I experienced. So it was raw, images of what happened. And then when we started going back, and he would actually interview me and go, okay, what else are you able to, what are you feeling as you're sitting in these bushes? What are you feeling as you're standing in front of these people with machetes and clubs in their hands? And, the image, I love the fact you say it's well written. He would actually ask me those interview questions, and I was able to add in those details that otherwise I would have left out. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you went through. You're a survivor, like that would make these guys on these survivor shows like bow down, because you were 9. You hadn't practiced surviving. You guys ate whatever you could find. You I don't even know if you ever changed clothes in all those months. No, you were
no showers.
No showers. You were in rags. Your hair was a mess. And you ate whatever you could find, and you survived. You survived encounters with people where you found this power inside you to look at a grown man and say, let us pass. For whatever reason, you pretended to be Hutu.
Yeah.
And it is, your 9-year-old self is a force to be reckoned with. I'm so grateful to meet you now.
Chills.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And one of the things I was looking into Rwanda before I interviewed you today, and I see that the country is 93% Christian. I see that you have a cross on. And one of the moments in the book that struck me so hard was a funeral, and it was a Christian funeral. And there weren't many funerals going on at this time. There were bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
It must have been, I can't remember who it was. It was a Hutu? There was a Hutu funeral going on.
Right.
And it was a Christian funeral. And I'm like, these people are Christians. So that, just with that as a background, my question is, I'm sure you've given it so much thought, and you're so forgiving and loving. I am too. I'm forgiving and loving. I haven't had to do it to the degree you have. You've gone deeper than most of us ever could even fathom going. How is it that humans, Christians, people who have love in their heart, can be turned against each other? You witnessed it. And it was so confusing to you when you were 9, and the first day at school, when they separated you and said, okay, those of you guys are going to sit over here and y'all are going to sit over here. And you had no understanding of that there was a difference. And that when the people who decided that there was going to be division, and I guess this was perpetrated on purpose. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. So the background of and you covered it so well, when I get into this place where they're actually going to have a funeral for this old man who was really super old. He was Carol, that's his name in the book. So I got there because the mayor sends me there. So the mayor says, in the middle of the genocide, and bet you find this like very much, ridiculous. So they will say, well, we have, in the middle of the genocide, they almost at the end, actually, the genocide, they will say, the government said, we have forgiven girls and women. We have forgiven you for being a Tutsi.
But it was a lie.
But it was a lie. And you go back and go, forgiving us for being who God created us to be, like we have to apologize for this somehow. But when I met the mayor in the genocide, he said, well, go to this place where it's going to be safe. They're going to protect you. They're going to rebuild your home that was destroyed in the middle of the genocide. When I got there, the men were drinking, they were eating, they had their machetes and clubs aside because they were celebrating the victories of the people that they have killed during the day. So when I arrived there, they were shocked to see me, to see a Tutsi woman, children still walking in the country. In a sense, we're like aliens in our own country. So I get there, they said, well, have a seat over there and pray. We will kill you in 15 minutes. And Betsy, so literally that's all I have. prayers, everything else had been stripped away from me at that point, that I relied so much on God's strength throughout this chaos. And my prayer was simple. Every time I said, God, blind them that they might not see me. I know they can, like, in a physical sense, they can see me. But I said, God, blind them that they might not see us. That you protected us all these days, all these, these months. This is another chance you have to show up, God. And Betty, so they gave us another 30 minutes. And 30 minutes turned into an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And at the end of it, they said, okay, you go and stay with this man. We will kill you tomorrow. The man that they had me stay with, that's his father who passed away, and they had to bury him. But you have to remember, this man was actually, who had this Christian funeral, was actually sexually abusing me as well. Right. And so it's so hard to explain what, one of the, like, how people's mind could change, how you can really, propaganda can change people's mind to participate in something so horrific as a genocide. But, one of the things, because of my faith, people, even actually on Monday, I was with President Bush and he asked me, he said, did you ever resent God for everything that you've gone through? And I said, no, because I know during the genocide, those people with machetes, those people raping women who used rape as a weapon, those are, God has created us to have, the freedom to choose. We can be good people. We could also choose to be evil. So those people holding machetes, it wasn't God. God gave them a choice. But those people who chose to, the perpetrators of the genocide, picked up, they bought into the ideology that Tutsis, like people like myself, they used to call us the cockroaches, the snakes, basically everything except humans. So we were dehumanized, and some people really bought into it. What I still don't understand is how the regular citizens, just really like the people my parents used to pay, school fees for their children, the people that my parents used to, feed, were the people coming after us, trying to kill us. That quick shift of mindset is something that I still don't understand.
It's unbelievable. So at the beginning of chapter 5, I'm gonna just read a little bit, I think, because it says, in the days before the genocide, we were glued to our radio. Like most Rwandans, we listened to this particular channel, and it had become a popular alternative to the official voice of the government. And it played Rwandan music and invited the public to call into broadcasts rousing anti-Tutsi sentiment. The station was essentially a propaganda tool for genocide insiders. So they were not hiding that there was this, and you guys your family was listening to this and saying, this is horrible. And your neighbors were saying, we're gonna kill you and take your stuff. I mean, so this was done on purpose. So the two things that are unbelievable that happened, and it was only 25 years ago, this could happen again. This was what, 27 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That the powers that be, for some reason, would start inciting division and violence amongst a country that was peaceful before that. Some of your best friends had been the Hutus. It's mind-blowing. And then how the propaganda that these people are awful, they called you all those things, and that's, that was also happened to the Jews. That is one of a man in 1986, before this genocide, had written something called The 10 Stages of Genocide. Have you ever heard of that?
I actually have. I was speaking at the Dallas Museum Holocaust, and we went through not just the Holocaust, and also they have a distribution of Rwandan genocide, and those 10 stages are posted in there. Okay. So it's incredible. Yeah, I'm very familiar. It's just the process to it is what just you go, wow. There's a plane. There's the planes they're laid out, like in Rwanda, for example. They gave away a list of names, our names, the Tutsi names. We had, prior, Rwanda was colonized, and so obviously we had ethnicity in your, you know how we carry our driver's license here. So your driver's license, equivalent to racial identity in Rwanda, will have to have your race in there. Will have to have your ethnicity. So if you were Tutsi, that will be stamped in your identity. If you were Hutu, same thing. If you were Twa, that will be in there as well. So people, the government, when they released the list of our, our Tutsi names and the homes that were going to be targeted, the regular citizens had the list and they knew who to go after. It was just so planned. It wasn't like overnight. They had ordered machetes, overseas. They imported 500,000 machetes specifically to kill the Tutsis. So it was, the world knew. It wasn't this secret that was hidden in Rwanda. The radio, the RTRM, was broadcasted all over the country. East Africa communities could hear the insights. People were just energized by this spirit of wiping out entire race. And one of the things that they've done because of propaganda was you kill them, you can come and take over their possessions, their resources, their homes, their lands. You just come and collect all of the stuff. So some of the regular people went for that. We'd also see that we had doctors, we had politicians, higher level educated people participating. And that's because the propaganda campaign went on for years.
So at what point did they make you put your ethnicity on your driver's license?
It wasn't very early, actually. It was very, very early. So when Rwanda was colonized, I believe it happened in 1959. So we had like multiple genocides in Rwanda. There was one when Rwanda was making a shift. Like my mother experienced a genocide as well in 59. And then there was another one when the government is actually, Rwandan government is saying, you know what, we no longer want to be colonized. We're going to be an independent country in the 60s. So that shift of power, it became, but Tutsis and Hutus lived side by side without this chaos. There was this understanding, yeah, these people might have like narrow nose, just, they're tall, they have small, bones, but they lived side by side. And what's even more, ridiculous, I think, is that we speak the same language, the same traditions. There's no distinct differences between these people. There were so many marriages between the groups. So you have Tutsis, a family like the same way we look at here, like for instance, my husband and I, black and white, right? You have these mixed children between these races. So where do you put those kids? But ethnicity back in those days in Rwanda, the children will go under the father's status, never the mother's status. If I was a Tutsi, if I marry a Hutu, the children will become Hutus. And so, yeah, the ethnicity, those like labels on the ethnicity, racial identity card were there for years.
But you didn't know. When you came home from school that day, you had been unaware that there were two groups of people.
Exactly. I had no clue. I didn't even know that this hatred, these ideologies among the Tutsis and Hutus were there. So there I was. My teacher said, if you come to my class, if you come back to school tomorrow and you have no idea who you are, you're going to be expelled. So I ran home with so much. I felt like it was this like discovery that I was about to find out, but I was also afraid to find out that I was a Tutsi because majority of my class, my friends were sitting on the Hutu side. And I'm going like, I care to sit in front of the classroom, yeah, but I also care to be with my friends who are now looking at me like, you're no longer welcome to be part of our group. And that type of like, it just makes me so sad that children will look at each other otherwise. There's so much love when you look at children, but to kind of divide to the level of dividing children, it just was sickening to me. So my mother, I ran home and I said, Mom, who am I? Who are we? And Mom played this, she was like, what are you talking about? Kind of deal. I said, are we Tutsi? Are we Hutu? Where are we? It was like a shock for me to ask that question. And so she danced around and then she said, well, you need to know, you're just a, you're a God, you're a child of God. That's all you need to know. And then I came back and I said, you need to tell me because it's an assignment. I have to go back and tell my teacher which ethnicity that I belong to so I can actually be seated with that ethnic group. That really, like, it actually made her so sad that she cried. And I was like, Mom, we're listening to the radio. We're hearing these things. You can no longer protect us. It's in the public. And so, again, she waited for Dad to come in as well. And my dad's words were just, it's something that I carry on up to this day. When I asked the same question, because I wanted to understand how this came about, my father said, in the kingdom of God, there's no Tutsi, there's no Hutu, there's no Twa. We are all God's children, and that's what matters the most. All these labels that we put on each other, these are man-made because just for bias reasons, for people wanting to take power. That's it. That was really it. And I look at the world in my father's eyes because I believe we are all created in God's image. I believe that God who made us, there's no black or white, Asian, or there's just, we are created in His love, and that's enough. So yeah.
You did such a beautiful tribute to your parents and how wonderful they were. I mean, listen to the wisdom of your father. Deep knowing that we are all God's children. We are all, we're no different in the eyes of God. Why would we be different in each other? And your parents were lovely people who helped in their community. And so I'm sure people are wondering, well, if you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you get out? And the answer is in the book. Your mother was hugely pregnant and you wanted to wait until the baby was born before you left. And it was just too late. She gave birth, and then 3 weeks later, I mean, I'm sure but there was some crazy things that happened during that time. The president of your country was killed on an airplane, which I think is probably a little bit suspicious. So human beings are totally capable of falling for propaganda and brainwashing. So I'm assuming that and you've probably given this a lot of thought, how do we recognize when that's happening in order to keep it from happening again? It seems like if someone came to me and said, hey, you need to hate those people over there, I don't think I'd fall for it, but I'm human. And apparently that's we do. What do we do to keep this from happening again?
One of the things that and you mentioned something, and let me go back really quick, with my father being, my parents done so much work in the community, and they believed, which was, kind of cute in a way, they believed that because of their love for the community, my father was a mediator. So people who had any issues about, whether it was land, marriage, or what between conflicts in the community, they'll come to my father because they used to know him as the fair judge. And because of that love they had for the community, the leadership that they carried in the community, they thought, these Hutu families are going to protect us. There's no way these people we loved on would actually change their mind and come and kill us because of the way we are. And so that was one. And then for me, even like to your question, it was just like really mind-boggling to still understand how quickly people can change their mind. But I think to stop it from happening, one thing that I've done for me personally, I think forgiving was one of the things that I felt like, okay, God, help me. My parents were Christians. So I remember my mother, she used to actually say, if you have a bitter heart, if you have, if you're angry at your brothers and sisters, and we were fighting over the small things, right? Like siblings fight. But she would say before we pray, if you have something in your heart that is bothering you, you better make it right with God before you say whatever you need to say to God. Otherwise, there was almost like this shield over your prayers that there's this distance that God is not going to hear your prayers because you have that anger in your heart. So when my mother gets killed in a genocide, I had a hard time really saying, I forgive these people. And I felt, I was like, there's no way I would get myself to forgive such act. My father dies, the same thing. It was almost like there was a grave, and then I was going deeper and deeper and deeper with anger and resentment. And so after the genocide, I found the courage to say, God, please give me the strength to be able to do this, because I know you ask of me. In the Bible, which again, both my parents stated that you ask for forgiveness and make it okay, because that's how God is going to forgive me. And every sin is, and sometimes we think that our sins are lighter compared to somebody else. They're the same in God's, his eyes. So I say, God, forgive them, because if he forgives them, he's going to be able to allow me to be forgiven as well. And so I remember when I was able to really feel like God was saying to me, forgive them, forgive them. And I say, I don't have in this body, not even a single bone in my body would actually be able to do that. But it gave me the strength, give me the courage to be able to forgive this, to forgive the rape that happened to me, again, because rape was used as a weapon in the genocide. So there were up to like 500,000 women who were raped and girls in the genocide. Forgive these people for killing my family. And when I was able to say that, Betsy, it was when I felt like my spirit was really lifted with so much freedom, with so much joy that I couldn't explain. And then God said to me, pray for them. And I was like, God, you must be funny, really. Pray and bless these people. How do I do this? I can say I forgive them, but how do I bless them? And again, God gave me that strength to be able to do that. And I felt like there was this, just these doors of opportunities that were sort of like close to me because of that anger that were just opened. And so I devoted my life to advocating for peace and reconciliation because of that. When I forgive, I actually, even when I went to Washington State University, one of my roommate was somebody from the other ethnicity. So you have to take from the Hutu, whose parents were actually in prison because of their participation in the genocide. But it's that kind of love. And again, there's so many misconceptions about forgiveness. A lot of people go, well, if I forgive somebody, I am minimizing the pain that they've caused me. Or if I forgive somebody, it's almost like I'm saying what they've done wasn't as painful, but that's not really that's not the truth. We forgive because we want to give ourselves the peace. When you forgive, you have this ability to be able to enjoy, what God has in front of you. You have to be able to enjoy the peace and freedom that we are all created to be able to enjoy. I spent so many nights thinking about the people who harmed me. And I remember stepping on, I used to be I would enjoy simple things. I love nature, I love people. But after the genocide, I would step outside and the sunshine would hit my face and I was like, I don't feel it. I would see beauty in nature and I wasn't feeling that either. But after I forgave, I was able to enjoy those simple things again. When I have a cup of coffee, I'm like, wow, thank you, God, for this. There's joy in simple things when we're able to free our mind. So forgiveness really is a gift to yourself. If for your audience, big or small, when you forgive, you free yourself. You give yourself freedom.
It is. That's the freedom. Forgiveness absolutely gives yourself a freedom. And I have never, and to have gone to the depths that you've been to, and then to reach down and find that in you and be able to come out the other side and have, I think that the joys and the gratitude and the things that you experience, I I can't reach those levels because I haven't reached the other levels that you had to go through. And just what a powerful testimony you have for that. It's just beautiful to see, and that you're walking this earth and that you came through it and that you love. And that's just such an amazing testament to humanity, the depths and then the heights that we can reach. And so I want to talk about a couple more things. And I one of them is that I recognize division amongst us now. And you said, you used the word planned, that the genocide in Rwanda had been planned. And so, it's very ironic because most people aren't talking about the Rwandan genocide. It's not on people's minds right now. And I heard a pundit on the radio mention it. He mentioned Rwanda, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going to be doing this interview in a couple of weeks. I was traveling, yes. And he said, who stood to benefit? Why did it happen? Because everyone in Rwanda, maybe not everyone, but the Hutus and the Tutsis, the country was ruined for everyone. You were amongst Hutu refugees at the end. And they didn't realize when they set out to kill all the Tutsis that they were going to destroy the country for themselves as well. I didn't realize the roommate you had, her parents had gone to prison then. If you participated in the genocide, you went to prison. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, once they find out that you did participate, some people brought themselves and said, yeah, I killed 400 people. So what do you do with me? I mean, over 1 million people dead in 100 days. There are so many participants. There were millions of participants to kill that many people. And so some people came forward. Other people, for example, like myself, watching people kill, I'll go, if I was in Rwanda, they have these grassroots courts where people basically invite regular citizens to come in and say, well, I know who participated, or these people come forward and say, I killed so-and-so's children, I killed so-and-so's husband and, the whole family or so. I took all these resources from this family. And also some of those who were in prison will start saying, I actually did this thing with so-and-so. So some people started turning, their friends in the genocide, but it's such a beautiful thing to see that these grassroots people ask for forgiveness in these court system, lower level courts. We also have, of course, Supreme Courts as well. But for those cases where it's on the grassroots, people are communicating, and those people who have asked for forgiveness have been released back into the community. So these Rwandans who participated in the genocide are living side by side with the Tutsi families that they have killed their loved ones. And again, because there was no way you keep these many people in prison, they destroyed the country. Basically, they demolished the country, the schools, the roads, the buildings. They just really threw bombs and grenades and that they just flee the country. So if they decided to come back, they had to be part of the participants in rebuilding this nation. And so there was no other way but living side by side with them. But they go through training of how to go back into society so that they don't do the same thing that they've done before the genocide, in the genocide.
It's interesting. It seems like it would be harder to forgive yourself for having participated than for forgiving. I mean, I can't imagine being like, yeah, I swallowed the Kool-Aid and went and killed a bunch of people, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So the country, this pundit that I heard said, who stood to gain? Who wanted Rwanda? And I hadn't thought of that while I was reading your book. And I don't know if I'm sure you've thought about it many, 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 many times and many hours. Who stood to gain? Who did this?
I really think I know it was a genocide that planned that claimed that the killing, the Hutu government claimed to, when they told these regular citizens that you kill them, you take over their resources, it all comes down to greed. Really, you tell these people, you're going to gain, if you do this, you're going to gain possessions. And that's all it took for them to be able to participate. So I don't think there was, when international communities left Rwanda, that just broke my heart, because I thought, these powerful nations could have stepped up and say something. Like you said, you don't hear Rwandan genocide. It's 1 million people are dead in 100 days in the 20th century. It's like, whoa, that was just 27 years ago, and 1 million people dead, but people are not talking about it. And so the Rwandan genocide was this thing that they, a lot of international communities, that they say, well, there's just a little bit of a war that is happening in Rwanda, in East Africa. There's they call it a conflict. And so it didn't carry the magnitude as was happening on the ground. I meet people who go, when they meet me, and go, what, you survived? Where was that?
Yeah.
Why would that be happening? But it just, the international communities turned a blind eye on the conversation about what was happening in Rwanda, stepped out completely. The country was, the borders of Rwanda were sealed, basically, so that the Tutsis won't be able to escape in the middle of the genocide. And so, I don't know. And those who sold machetes to Rwanda, and the money that was poured into, the guns and grenades and all the army, sources that were put into this, it was just like, me as a person being on the other end, receiving end, I still don't understand. When I was taken into the Congo with this man who was obviously, abusing me, sexually abusing me, and taking me to a different country because he was afraid that he might be, he'll face consequences, because again, I didn't say even in the book that he killed anyone, because I don't know for a fact, but he'll get up every single day with a machete in a club, and he said he's going to work. And so when he knew that the new government was coming in, the Tutsi government was coming in, that they was going to take over, he said, let's just pack our bags and just go to Congo. And then in the Congo, that's when he was actually about to sell me into marriage as 10 years old at the time. And I remember sitting in the lines of UNICEF, praying that they would take me anywhere in the world. I didn't care where I would go, as long as I wasn't being, sexually abused at that time, or being sold into marriage as a 10-year-old. But even at the UNICEF, we had people who were checking us into filing, who were the Hutus, the people who had participated in the genocide. So I guess the people that I'm meeting there, they're the same people who actually wiped out my family, and they're not going to have me going in any other places for safety. So I managed to come back to Rwanda, and that's where I was a homeless kid in Rwanda, because again, there were thousands and thousands of children in the streets because of orphanages were full. And so we became homeless. And at one point I had my first job when I was 10, I was a maid, but I always felt that having the kind of faith that I had in God, having the hope that God took care of me through such chaos, through such dark place, that God somehow will be able to bring me to safety, that he was going to make it okay for me to be okay after the genocide. So I kept on hope, really held on to hope, like that was the only way for me to stay alive.
You made it through so many situations when you thought, certainly this is the end. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like God has a purpose for me on this planet, because once the purpose is done, then it's over, and that's that. And so you must really feel that way, obviously. And you are do everything you can for orphans. Tell us a little bit about what, obviously orphans have a special place in your heart. as an orphan after the genocide, you ended up in a foster family where the father sexually abused you and raped you as well. So it's interesting to me that you had to forgive that too. I mean, so even in your time of being an orphan and having atrocities again happen to you, you've come through so much, and you're obviously you feel so passionate about helping orphans in the world. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what we can do.
Thank you for that question, Betty. I really felt like my mother used to take like little baskets of food or clothes to the orphanages. Before the genocide, you think like there's not that many orphans in orphanages, and there weren't that many at all. And so to step into my mother's footstep was with actually my husband and I, we came up with a nonprofit. It's called 1 Million Orphans. And when people can go on a website as well and find my website, avoiceinthedarkness.org, and can donate there. So this nonprofit is really to raise money to feed these kids, to clothe them, to keep them in school. Because I want to show them that it doesn't matter how you showed up in this world, but you showed up because, like you just said, Betsy, God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And so to support and empower those young little children it's been something that I feel like it's in my heart to do. And that's the only way to give back. We're also here at the college, I work at the community college, Lone Star College. I oversee foster and adopted students as well. And to be able to guide them, knowing that they have been without having our children living in foster care system, it's a great place to have, but they don't learn a whole lot on how to succeed in life. So to be able to help them navigate academic side of things, and also to help them outside of academic, it's for me is a gift. And I chose education because of when I was a homeless kid. I remember my father, even before the genocide, my father used to say that education was your ticket to actually that will open so many doors of opportunities. And if you wanted to advocate for a group of people, if you wanted to be invited at the table to discuss policy changes, you have to be educated. And so for me to be at a community college as an academic advisor, on top of all the other hats that I get to wear, is to be able to help empower our young people to reach their fullest potential in the world. But 1 Million Orphans really, it's 1 million orphans because there were that many people killed in 3 months, in 100 days. But we're giving back those resources in order to tell them, these kids, there's somebody who loves you. You might came here not wanted, but you are loved. And that's the role we get to play. So my goal is to be able to go global all over the world, and on top of that, and also help our children here in Texas as well, but be able to touch millions of lives.
So you help to, so it's a global thing where you raise money to help orphans, whether that's feed them, clothe them, help them find families, all of it.
All of it, yes. Yeah. I feel like God pulled me in this place. I asked myself, okay, so what else do I do, God? And I felt like orphans and widows. I also advocate for peace and reconciliation, but I really feel like if we can love on these kids and show them that somebody cares, they're gonna grow up knowing that they're worth in the community. They're gonna go out in the world, treat their neighbors. They're gonna love on somebody else the way we're loving on them. That's just my hope. We were supposed to donate in the Philippines to the orphanage homes, but then COVID happened. My sweet husband knows, so a lot of times I get phone calls that said, well, from these orphanages, we have kids who have no, basic needs. What do you do? So when people are not buying the book to support me, or when I'm not invited to speak, and obviously because of COVID, I'm not raising money. I don't have a whole lot of money to be able to give into these, children, other than just giving away my paycheck. And working in education is not a whole lot, but people can really have an impact in these children's lives. I normally say that, if you buy a pizza for $25, you can put a child in school in Burundi. You can buy them uniform. You can buy them rice and beans, and those things seem like very basic, but for those children, they will be forever grateful. Christmas time, we give to the children in Burundi again, and just to feed them on Christmas. It was just so moving to see the smiles on their faces. The Christmas before 2020, I think it was 2019, I did something here with my colleague where we had children from foster care write a list of what they wanted on a piece of paper. And I went into the staff, the professors, colleagues, and say, this is a list of what these kids want. And people came, students were giving to our students here in Texas. So we invited up to like 50 plus children in foster care, and tears in the room of those children who have been in foster care for so many years. And they said, we have never had Christmas. And I surprised them with Santa Claus as well. So we had a professor dressed up as Santa Claus, and they took pictures. It was a highlight of their lives. And so if I could do a little bit of something here and there to impact those children's experience, maybe that's what I'm here for.
The inspiration is gigantic. I'm so thrilled to have come across you and know you, because there's a lot of people I know that would love to give directly to a foundation or a nonprofit or something that they know is doing the right thing with the money. A lot of times you don't know. And so if you're listening to this and you are interested in helping, like Jeanne is saying, a foster kid here or an orphan in Burundi, this is the place to give. It's becoming very clear to me because you are so genuinely involved in the lives of orphans all over the world. And your foundation's called A Million Orphans. So I'm going to try to get the word out there, because a lot of people really do want to help, but they don't know if they're giving to a foundation that keeps 90% of the money or whatever, So
I'll send you pictures. I'll show you proof that I'll send you a receipt of everything that I've spent.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I tell people that it's just like we feel like it's a simple act until we see, like, when I get these letters from the kids who are just so grateful to have a new uniform. Usually, like, they'll have one uniform. That's one uniform for a whole year. If they can have two, that's a life-changing for them. That's so meaningful for life. Yeah.
Your sincere knowing in God and your belief in God is really moving to me, because if anyone could ask, and I know you questioned that when you were 9, you said that, well, I don't know that, you questioned whether you could forgive those people.
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about your confidence that God lives. I know, I want to say, you're going to say, because he lives through me, I forgive and I give, and that's what makes me feel alive. But tell me, how are you so sure that God is real?
I seriously, Betsy, that's such a powerful, good question. And I hope I can do justice as I'm trying to think to that question. I know God is real because it's almost like, this is crazy that I feel like I actually touched God at one point in life. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm sitting on the other side of, here down in Houston, say that there was one time that I was going to be killed in the genocide, and I was in line with other people. And I shared with you before that over and over again, my simple prayer was, God, blind these people that they might not see me. So I saw miracles after miracles. I counted how many times I was almost about to die in the genocide, over 200. So it wasn't like I was hiding and just, staying put in the bushes, in the swamps. No, I would get out, or the bushes would get flushed out with dogs and these people. And there I was. And I would say, God, blind them that they might not see me. Protect me, God. And so I was going to share again with this moment where we're about to cross into the Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, in another country, but still in the refugee camp, they actually identifying people who look like me, the Tutsis. And so I was in that line. They killed about over 20 people. So I'm standing there in line and I say, God, I know you didn't bring me here to die here after you saved my life over and over and over again. I pray that you show up. And again, I'm watching these people kill and throwing the bodies in the river, kill every single one of the people right in front of me. And it was my turn. And these men, just like the people before me, they threw me on the ground and they raised the machetes to butcher me. And I close my eyes, but I hear this woman screaming, saying, stop, stop, that's my daughter, that's my daughter. And these men like had their machetes high up in the air and they stopped because they were confused. And I am confused. And I'm thinking, this woman is probably lost her daughter. There's thousands of people in this refugee camp. She's going to come here and look at me and she's going to realize I'm not her daughter and she's going to walk away. This woman weaves herself into this crowd. She looks at me, Betsy. Her eyes, just the same way you and I are looking at each other. She looks at me and she says, that's my child. She was glowing. She was flawless. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I am dying to ask her who she is. If these men obviously let me out of here. So the men are like, okay, they're confused. There's this confusion look on their faces. I am confused, but I'm trying to show that confidence, like I know her. Have no clue. And they took her on one side and they took me on the other side to do the investigation, to figure out whether really like this is my mother. They asked her my birthday, my full name, first and last name. They asked her where I was born, all those details. Remember the identity card that we talked about that will have your name, your race, and all the other stuff in it? Everything that I told these men on the other side were written in her racial identity card. And at one point I told them, I was like, Jeanne Umutoni. Umutoni was a nickname my father used to give me, which meant that is girl. Instead of giving them my actual last name, I gave them the nickname, and that's what was written in her identity card. So these men come back to me and they look at the woman and they throw my little body, boom, right into her hands. And as I was walking with this woman, I felt this peace in my heart. And she told me, and I looked back to see what they did with the other people behind me. They had, killed them. But she held my hand and she said, you continue to go with these people. I will protect you. I will be with you. And she disappeared. Just disappeared. I ran into this refugee camp hoping that I'll find her. But I believe that really honestly, that God showed up that day. So I know God does exist. And I know it's hard to explain when you see other people dying left and right. I had another interview with John O'Leary on his podcast when he was talking about, he asked me, how do you really believe that God lives when you see other people dying? But I prayed, we don't get what we prayed for a lot of times, but we have to trust that God is going to do what God does in a moment where we need him. And so I prayed for my father, yet I watched him being killed and slaughtered with machetes. I prayed for so many people. I remember one other thing that, just recently I just had a post because my son just turned 5 yesterday. I remember being in a hospital praying. They gave him a 3 to 20 chance of survival because he had high drops, fluid all over his little body. And I remember praying and saying, God, save him. But I got to a place where I said, God, if it is your will, let it be. If you give me seconds with him, if you give me minutes with him, and then that's what I'm going to take, but my spirit is going to be crushed. And if it is crushed, you're going to have to work on my brokenness. And so a lot of times we just don't get what we pray for, but I know without a doubt. And one of the other miracles so I remember just saying to the doctors after I got the news, between the 3 to 20 chance of him surviving, I said, I want to go home. My doctors were just like, really? Your son doesn't even have 50% of survival and you're going home. I said, I want to go home so that way I can actually have a real open conversation with God, so I can pray and not having that interruption of somebody coming and knocking on my hospital, coming to check on me. I said, I want to be in a place where I can communicate to God. And I remember being in a shower that evening when I showed up home and crying in the shower because I was like, God, really? We had miscarriage before him. So I was like, I'm going to go through this again. And I'm crying, I'm bawling in the shower, and I have water just running so my husband doesn't hear me cry or anybody else. And I heard the Holy Spirit say to me, it's so very calm and said in my native language, that said, Humura, which means remain calm, I'll be with you. And I said, okay, God, I got out of that shower, I put on a nice dress, I did my makeup, and I looked cute. I said, God, he's got this. Whatever happens, he will fix it up, or he's going to fix my broken heart. So again, we just don't get what we pray for a lot of times, but God is real. You see God in every detail if you choose to look for him. You see him in the beauty of people, in nature, in all things. God is real.
So miracle after miracle after miracle makes it an impossibility that God couldn't be real. It's and what you've reminded me of is the miracles in my life that I've experienced. And I think I'm probably like most people, and we question it because when you look around and see man's inhumanity to man, which you witnessed more than anyone ever, I don't know anyone else like you. And you question whether God could be real. That's when you do it. But then when you see the miracles, so I'm speechless. I think that those of us who are still, go through that, is God a figment of our imagination? Is anything real? Remember the miracles, because we've all had them. And you're kind of lucky to have been someone who, she was an angel, this woman who showed up.
I seriously, Betsy, believe that God sent me an angel. And I remember writing the book, and Paulie said, my husband, call him Paulie, sorry guys. He said, I wanted to say that, yeah, God sent me an angel. I felt like I literally got to touch that close, to God. But and he said, no, people just, because some people think that it was my mother who somehow showed up miraculously alive, but she was dead. Or it was just this wonderful, kind woman who just showed up and they disappeared. So we let people just define however that they want. We didn't want to let anyone, we just didn't want people to kind of have this, like, this is how I feel, therefore you should feel the same way. But me personally, I believe that's God who showed up that day. God showed up one more time. Among the others, 200 plus times, God showed up. I'm so sorry, Betty.
That's okay. That one, but that one's crazy. That one, you knew the name. You picked a random name, and it was the same name. I mean, yeah. So that's one. Definitely chills and recognizing that your purpose here on this planet is so powerful, and so are all the people who were killed. I mean, that was their role in this that we could see. And I know that we're being divided now in this country. We have been, divided by race, or and most of us don't don't buy into it, I don't think. But they've tried to divide us by rich and poor, and they've tried to divide us by gay and straight. I mean, you name it. And so, do you see any of the division that's going on in our country right now as potentially that which could lead to these 10 the 10 stages of genocide? The first is classification. The second is symbolization, when you give names and symbols to people and say they are other. And then discrimination. There's discrimination going on. If you are those people, you can't do this. And then dehumanization. That's when they start calling you the names. It happens every time. The vermin, the cockroaches, the snakes. And then there's organization, preparation, persecution. Then there's the extermination. And the last one is denial. They deny it ever happened. Of course, then you got to get through it for that. I don't ever want this to happen again. And I wonder if you see, but if you see, do you have any stirrings at all of what's happening now with discrimination being potentially a situation of genocide?
I really don't. And the reason I say that is because, Betty, we have people like you who you come in with kindness, with a good heart to be able to see other people the same way God created them. So I'm hopeful in that not every single one of us is going to be brainwashed. We know better, right? And I try to stay away from people, like you said, at the beginning, to be told, oh yeah, I hate this group of people because, if you want to be my friend, you've got to be part of this group and you have to immerse into this group and I love the fact that I can have multiple people from all walks of life. I feel like that to me is a way to help me learn and grow. I might not, agree with them 100%, but I let them have their opinion and I'm listening and I'm taking in what I think is important, right? And so I am very hopeful that even though that the politics got ugly and a lot of people are targeting each other, it's just, I believe there's kindness in all of us, good people who are going to see through these lies, right? And so that gives me hope for humanity. And one of the things that I advocate for is that again, peace and reconciliation, because I believe if we can walk the aisle and be able to shake hands of somebody who comes from a different religion, we get to know that person on an individual level. We see beauty, we see kindness, we really get to know that person and find out that there's commonality than what what the media said or what they say about these groups of people. It's so much grayness in those people. I have gay friends, I have, lesbians, I have both parties, Republicans, Democrats, but I look to see the goodness in every single one of those individuals, because I believe that when everybody can have their opinions, but also I am not going to be influenced just because, I have to really study whatever that it is being told to me. And at the end, make my own decision. What happened in Rwanda was because a lot of people were told, you have to hate these people because if you kill them, you can take over their resources. It boggles my mind that a lot of people bought into that ideology. Could it happen here? It is happening. People are just really, I'm not saying the genocide will happen here, but I think some people become brainwashed enough to do the things that you and I might not think that they'll be able to do or willing to do. And that scares me. As a human being who survived the genocide, it scares me to see how, and again, both aisles, we see people just being, had things that that are questionable and nobody's, and who am I to say you're wrong? I let people have their opinions because we live in a beautiful country where our First Amendment is protected. Freedom of speech is real. And that's why I love to listen to the, to these voices. But yeah, like you, Betsy, it scares me. It scares me that some people could be potentially, the words are powerful, but people take the words and put it in action. But I'm still hopeful.
Yeah, well, you saw people during the Rwandan genocide who never succumbed to it. You had a Hutu friend of the family who was loyal to the end. I'm sure there were lots of them who didn't participate.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's, excuse me. There's good people who won't fall for the propaganda.
Right. And those are people that really, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, baby. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because in the book, A Voice in Darkness, I tried to highlight people that I believe that I saw that were kind, that they would spend, some of them lost their lives. Some Hutus lost their lives because they said, no, this is nonsense. We're not going to stand for this. We're not going to kill so-and-so's children because you promised us that we're getting these, resources and things. So there were people who, educated and non-educated people, who stood against these ideologies, these hateful ideology. Unfortunately, some of them lost their lives again because the government was like, no, then if you're not with us, then you don't deserve to leave. So,
Yeah, it was like the people who hid the Jews.
mhm.
They weren't going to call them out. And so, yeah, it's a heart thing. And I love your hopeful attitude. Mine is too, and I also don't fear death at all. I would imagine that I'm going to ask you that because that just came up, but I don't have any fear at all of death. I was just talking to my dad, he's almost 90. And I said, it must be really interesting to be 90 because, at my age, it could happen any day. It could happen any day to any of us. But when you're 90, it's like, it really could, it's going to happen sooner than later. And he has no fear of death. And I don't either. And he said, I look forward to it. And I do too. If you've listened to people who've had near-death experiences, it's always this amazing, like, love and light, and their family, maybe dead family members, are just this peace. And so I don't think there's anything to fear there. I don't know. You came so close to death so many times. How do you feel about death and dying?
Betsy, I feel like you're sweet dad, and I have no fear of dying. The only reason I'm afraid of that, what makes me feel like, okay, what if I'm not here? Then what about those people that I take care of? What will happen to them? It's weird. I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of, what if these people won't be able to make it because I'm no longer. And I try to empower these, provide sustainable resources to many children that I support, and and also teach the people that I care for to take care of themselves if I'm no longer here. But I'm not afraid of dying. I made death so many times that I felt like, it's weird when you actually in that place. For me, I was like, okay, I would actually prepare myself to die in the genocide. I would see the other end, like there was this and I don't even know the word for that. I would envision myself just dead, like, but my spirit had been lifted up in God, but that's just my body there. So death it's not a scary thing to me as well. Yeah.
Well, it's true. It wasn't until my children were a little older. Your son is 5.
Yeah.
It wasn't until they were a little older, and I thought, they could probably make it on their own. At 5, you don't feel that way. So, I feel like, yeah, like when my children were that little, I felt this, definitely not ready to go. And it's not that I'm ready to go, but I'd be okay with it. But you have more than just your child. You said people. So you're thinking of the foundation,
Right.
what does happen to your foundation when you die? What's going to happen to it?
That's exactly that's what my fear is, and also not only just the foundation, um, but also like the impact that I feel like that I'm called here to be this voice that brings in peace and reconciliation, um, talking about forgiveness. I feel like I am here to create that impact. If I'm talking about forgiveness, if I'm advocating for women and girls, those who are coming from countries or places where their human rights doesn't apply to them, I feel like what will happen in that, but it's not as scary. If I go, God will find somebody else to be able to do that. But I'll continue to do the best that I can to support these little orphans from all over the world as much as I can, with people like you giving me a chance to speak, so that way other people can actually participate and be the heroes of these children. And when I say me, I can't do it by myself, really, honestly. There's no way. My paycheck is not big enough working for a community college. But it's people that, like you, that gives me a chance to share my story, and I'm able to touch, reach many people who can give. Somebody who will buy a book, not only you support me, but you're also supporting these children as well. That's the only way for me to continue this mission of empowering these young children.
Well, I feel like you probably have a long way to go, because God is using you and you are doing such amazing things with this life that you've been so blessed so many times over to have. And we are all blessed that you're here. It's people like you that give so many people hope, because some people don't know what to do with their lives. They don't know, and they see you and they go, I've got to go out and do something. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of how just inspiring it is to have read your book, to know your story, and then to see what you're doing, and how much joy and love and forgiveness, all those high vibration vibes, that those frequencies that are coming out of you, and you have cultivated that, and you cultivated that from such a young age. And so I am so honored that you have come on the show today, and I want people to know everywhere they can find you. I know that it's a voice in the darkness.org. Tell us other ways, if people want to follow you, if they want to get involved, what are the best ways people can do that?
If they follow you, I'll send you a link to my social media as well. I'm not crazy social media that much, but if you connect to me from there, so it's Jeanne Celestine Lakin, just the same way, with the Celestine added in the middle, my middle name, Jeanne Celestine Lakin. They can find me anywhere. Search my name, find me. My email address is easy. It's jeanne@voiceinthedarkness.org as well. So people can shoot me an email once they read the book and they have questions or they have something to share with me. Shoot me an email, jeanne@voiceinthedarkness.org. I'll be able to respond, and I promise it is me responding. Sometimes people get response back when they ask me questions and go like, "Are you serious? Like, it's you that..." I said, "It's me, I promise. It's you that signed my book." "Yes, I'm signing your book and I'm shipping it away." So if they order the book from my website, don't go on Amazon. Amazon, when you a publisher, you go to Amazon and you get a book, you don't get a whole lot of money because they pay for shipping, distribution, and all the other stuff. But if you go to avoiceinthedarkness.org and you order your copy there, I have a lot of stock of books here. I will sign them and ship them your way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank
yes,
you, Vicky. Thank you, you got yours.
Yeah, that's where I got mine. I went by Elizabeth. That's my real name, because that's on my credit card or whatever. So, so if someone donated $1 million to your foundation, then you could have someone else answering emails.
Right. Yes. Or I'll continue to answer the emails, because I love that personal touch to things. I don't know, I'm kind of weird in a sense. I don't know if you listened to this conversation I was having with my narrator she narrated the book. and that's on Audible. It's on Amazon there. So yeah, you're not going to get a copy of Audible on my website. But when I was having a conversation with her, she was like, but I'm not famous, I'm not known, I'm not all these things. I don't have that many followers. But I was like, I chose you. I chose you because it felt perfect. And there was this question of of course, Black and white. And she's like, I'm a white woman narrating your book. I said, look, I ran away from racism. Don't bring me this. We are to be in each other's life as brothers and sisters. And so all these, again, divisions that people create that are they're meaningless and they're small. There's so much power within us where we can just see one another as, we are part of the kingdom family. And that's how I choose to see it every day. And so again, if anyone wants support and donate, I will probably be sending those emails. I'll probably be sending those books because I love that. I feel like it's meaningful to me. It was never about money. The work that I do, I feel like it gives me so much joy. Even it might not pay a whole lot of money, but it gives me so much joy to be able to have that hands-on experience for somebody else. So.
Well, I wish you the best, and I wish all the orphans in the world the best. And I'm gonna be right. You're gonna be right here forever. I love you, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you wrote this book and that you're doing what you're doing. And I know that the book must have been extremely therapeutic. All those journals you took, and I would highly recommend that everybody get a copy and read her story, because it does shift a consciousness for you. It's a good thing. And so, Jeanne, is there anything else that you would leave the world with, if you could? Any other nuggets of inspiration or wisdom?
Couple things. Actually, one, Betsy, I just want to thank you so deeply, so very much for having this platform, this place for people to come in and share their thoughts, to come in and be able to have this platform where we can, interact with one another, even though that it's on, on the internet. It's way better than just not having the conversation. So thank you for having this platform. Thank you for having me. One of the things I want to leave with people is really to hold on, on hope. Really hold on to this hope, because there's a lot of shifts that are happening. But if we just really kind of sort of sit back a little bit and hold on, it's going to get better. There's no wars, there's no conflicts that takes lifetime. They all come to end. So be hopeful. That's one. And the other thing to remind people that, yes, I feel like there's anxiety because of COVID, because of, again, chaos, but be that voice that really loves on everyone, that brings kindness to others, because we are in the kingdom of God. We are God's children. And there's these divisions, again, they're not there in the kingdom of God. And I think that we're all heading the same place. So use your kindness wisely. Here we go. That's my 2 cents, Betsy.
I know. What was that? I'm sorry.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay. You know what? That's an amazing 2 cents. I heard you a few times during this discussion that we've been having. You say love on. You don't say love people. You say love on them. It's like this, like you leave them with something, like you, and it's on them. And that's, I mean, you love on somebody. It's great. And so, but take that as more like in a general term. And so hope and love, that's what you would leave us with. And thanks for the reminder.
Thank you, Betsy. I love you.
We love each other. Okay, well, I'm going to say thank you to the listeners who are following Freedom Junkie Radio. And I love all of you too. Love and Anya. And so just keep seeking freedom and that which raises anything positive and loving and good and hope and forgiveness and kindness and loving on people, go love on somebody right now. And until we meet again, thanks for being here, y'all.
Thank you.
I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a king. I don't need a thing.
You know,
You're doing an amazing work. You're really doing incredible. I love your interview style. It goes so deep.
well, this one, I have to say, I had a little, I mean, I wasn't nervous, but there was a trepidation because Jeanne, I don't know that I'll ever interview someone who's had even close to your experience. It was a little bit scary to me. And you are, to see what you've gone through and the therapy that you've allowed yourself to come through, the writing of the book, the forgiving, the moving on, and the creating your life and giving back to other people and loving God and loving people. It's profound isn't even a good enough word. I'm so honored to have gotten to know you. Just look at that smile on your face. It's, I don't know, you have your bad days and there's times when you're like, what is, life is not good, or I don't know, but.
Yeah, I do have my moments, but I think a lot of it because of like the gratitude, when you go without so much and then you come to like having even like a little bit of like, I'm like, I wake up every morning and I'm like, okay, God, what am I supposed to put on my gratitude? Like I usually write 5 things that I'm grateful for. And sometimes it's just simple things. Like I got myself, my son gave me a hug. I'm able to have lights on and be able to step in the world, and just like simple things mean so much more when everything has been taken away in a way. So there's that gratitude that just goes in, and then it changes me. A lot of people from that I work with, they go like, why are you smiling all the time? Because there's so much joy about, simple little things. Have a cup of coffee and I'm smiling about this. This is important.
Because you suffered.
Mm-hmm. It really gives you a sense of like, just the gratitude is, and I don't even have the right words for it. It makes life seem like, okay, everything is going to be just fine. I'm here. Let me see how I'm going to be used. As long as I have this, like, even if I don't have those things, the fact that I can open the fridge and go, oh yeah, I have food in there. It's a big deal. It's important because
Jeanne,
I was eating grass.
If you could go back and take it all away and undo it all, would you?
Oh, I would. I really there's moments like even like my son yesterday when he turned 5, I was like, oh, like if his grandparents were here, it would have been like phenomenal. Like it would have been great. I really and I grew up in a loving community, loving my parents, my aunties and uncles were so close to us that I felt like so much joy, that I felt like also like having my innocence taken away so early. So if I could go back to that type of life, I would definitely want to go back to it. Yeah. It gave me so much, but I also feel like it taught me how to be this strength that came from all of that chaos, that I feel like the impact that I'm able to make, in the world to people. And when I say impact, it's not like this massive, and I know I'm touching lives. It's just like when I get like an email that said, for the first time, because you shared that you were sexually abused and this is how you shared, I am able to speak on that myself. And I'll go, wow, what a gift you give somebody by being able to speak on things that I don't, at the beginning I was like, not a big deal. I'm just sharing my story. But to come back and get those response from people, there's a story of a sweet woman. She passed just recently. She was 83 years old. She was from my home church, very close by here from where we live. And she came and she's like, she had a little a walker, and she comes to me from at our church, and she said, sign this page on this book, in your book. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I say in this on this page that she really wants me to sign. So she read about forgiveness. And she said to me, she said, I would have gone to my grave without forgiving what happened to me. And I think it's page 241. I think that's what she had me sign. I don't remember exactly. I hope that's where it is. But she had me sign there. And when I signed that, she said, because you forgive, Jeanne, I was able to forgive somebody who has harmed me. And I'm 83 years old. She's like, I don't have too long to live, but I was willing to go to my grave without forgiving. And Betsy, so that kind of like a gift, that simple thing that I wrote about, that I thought it's me just expressing, it made an impact. And she just passed, about, I think 2 to 3 months ago. And for that, I'm like, okay, God. I mean, of course, I prayed, to be received in heaven, but to know that I had that gift to give her, it almost like actually want to make me cry. So they not cry. We managed to go through this without crying. Oh gosh.
To know that you've had that kind of an impact, and Jeanne, you'll never know how far the impact goes. And your bravery, just in the face of all of the men who would have killed you right there on the spot, your bravery when you were 9, your bravery to forgive the abusers that you had even after that, then your bravery to tell your story in detail. It is all so powerful and so impactful. And God's using you in a big way. And so I marked a spot in the book. You said, that morning, I took my freedom. I never saw Furaha, his relatives, Gahigi, or a refugee camp ever again. He said, I took my freedom. And I circled that. I was like,
wow.
Yeah. Just there's the reason I asked you whether you would have gone back and changed it, and I'm glad you answered the way you did, because it was horrific, and obviously, but it's made you who you are, this warrior angel person. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Betsy, no, I am just a simple human being living down here in Houston. But if you come down here, Betsy, I need a hug. Let's go for lunch or coffee or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're such a phenomenal woman. Yeah.
Well, God, right back at you. I'm so honored to know you, and I'm going to give Leanne a big hug and be like, thank you for telling me about Jeanne, because it's just so special.
I live better than a king ever did. I live better than a king.